Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. And it's been a fun week with Gamescom and everything. Just constant news, one after another, and one publisher in specific that's been very active, and I'll actually go so far as to say has dominated the headlines, has been Xbox. Yeah, about that quote-unquote marketing concern that was going around earlier this month. What a joke. But there was actually one big concern that Xbox did answer yesterday. Over the last month, there's been some questions raised in how Xbox handles parity with the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S. There's been some debates online, and I think that that's certainly going to pick up now because Xbox just found a solution to get one of the biggest games of 2023 on the Xbox Series, but at a cost. The question is, was that cost actually worth it? And that's something that we're going to dive into today. Then we'll also be talking about God of War because it appears to be returning after all. I mean, we just talked about this the other day, but it's already picking up steam, though maybe in a way that fans aren't typically used to seeing from this franchise. To get things started off, though, like I said, Xbox has been dominating the headlines this week at Gamescom, and I mean, they've given up so much information that we'll actually still have more Xbox stuff to talk about even after this episode, because there's just a ton to go over. Make sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date with all of that, but for today, that includes a couple more Game Pass announcements. They finally announced that Warhammer 40k Darktide is coming over to Xbox consoles, which includes a day one Xbox Game Pass release. This game released last year on PC, and it was fairly well received at the time. It got a 74 overall score on Metacritic. It was lauded for its cooperative and fun gameplay, but the Xbox Series version will come with all the improvements that they made, plus some new additions as well. One such example is the addition of RPG-style skill trees that will be available day one in the Xbox Series version, and I mean, if you've been waiting for that console release, it will finally come on October 4th. Now, interestingly enough, they also teased Citizen Sleeper 2, which again will release directly in the Game Pass. Now, as of this moment, we don't have a release window, gameplay, or anything like that, but they did give us a story-focused trailer that kind of shows off its unique art style, and they did say that we can wishlist it right now. We also know that the first game was very well received, so if you've played the first, you might be extra excited for its sequel. The original ended up getting an 85 overall score on Metacritic, and it was often praised for its storytelling and just overall fun gameplay loop. It is a very story-focused game, and it actually gets compared to Disco Elysium quite frequently, so if you do like those type of games, you might want to go ahead and pay attention to Citizen Sleeper 2, and maybe check out the first while you're waiting. Per usual, though, I mean, you all know how this works by this point. Xbox Game Pass, it just never really slows down, and they're keeping that pretty consistent with some new day one games to look forward to in the future. Moving on, though, Sony made news yesterday for acquiring the headphone maker Audeze, and this will actually directly benefit gamers, and I do mention gamers as a whole deliberately. They've already made an announcement that they will continue to support competitor platforms, presumably Xbox, maybe PC, possibly Nintendo as well, who knows, but this acquisition is not about PlayStation exclusivity, but Audeze is known for making high-end headphones, and Sony is one of the market leaders for audio. Sony actually does a great job with their headphones, I think especially when it comes to noise canceling. They've also implemented their Tempest 3D audio tech in their PlayStation headsets, but with Audeze, they can really just kind of take that expertise a step further. That is the goal with this acquisition, to advance audio to the next level. And again, that is in direct benefit to gamers. As a side note here, and I think that this is important to understand, every time I see these Sony acquisitions, I always see those comments that are kind of surprised or sometimes even bewildered. A lot of people haven't heard of Audeze, but that is how Sony operates. Those people that make up those yearly rumors that Sony's somehow going to acquire Square Enix from Software or Take-Two are honestly full of it. I mean, we know for a fact that Sony set some money aside for more acquisition. We know this, but Sony is not just about PlayStation. They are a big company, and they're looking to expand in other ways as well. And this is one such example alongside other acquisitions like Crunchyroll. I mean, even if you look at their game studio acquisitions, Sony tends to target smaller AA studios that has a lot of potential, and then they build them up from there. That's something that Sony has excelled with in the past, and it's what they still do to this day. So I think people need to maybe lower their expectations when it comes to PlayStation studio acquisitions. reasons. I mean, if they acquire a bigger studio, hey, that's one thing. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but I'll tell you this right now. It would be highly, highly doubtful that would leak online, because that type of stuff doesn't typically leak online, and for good reason. That type of stuff is highly confidential for legal purposes. So anytime you see those leaks online, you might want to look at them a little side-eye. Definitely take them with a massive grain of salt. Let's go and move on over to a big topic of the day, though, and this is actually huge for various reasons. Not only is Xbox going to get a massive game this year in 2023, but it's also a major change for the Xbox Series brand going forward. So what's happening here is that after Phil Spencer and Larian Studios met at Gamescom, they came to a solution and announced that Baldur's Gate 3 will in fact release on the Xbox Series this year. So there you go. Xbox fans, you can rejoice. You will in fact get Baldur's Gate 3 this year, which is absolutely fantastic news. This is one of the highest rated games this generation, and it is a legitimate Game of the Year contender. This is a game that Xbox gamers are going to want to play sooner rather than later. But that has been the thing about this game. It's been well publicized that Larian was having some issues with Xbox Series S specifically and its local split screen. Because they were having issues getting Baldur's Gate 3 split screen on the Series S, they had to delay the Xbox version, even though the Xbox Series X version works perfectly fine. So this has brought forth a pretty major discussion online on whether or not Xbox should change their Xbox Series parity clause to no longer require split screen on both the Series X and a Series S. I've actually done a few different polls on this topic, and most of you all did lean on the side of removing that parity clause, and, well, Xbox, they're listening. That's exactly what they did. Baldur's Gate 3 will now come over to Xbox this year at an undefined date, and the Xbox Series X version will get all the upgrades that comes with the PlayStation 5 edition, but the Series S version will not come with local split screen. Now, maybe they add it at a later date. That's not technically impossible. It just will not be there at launch. Now, personally, I think that this is fine. I understand that there's going to be some discussions online, and not everybody's going to necessarily agree with this, but at the end of the day, whether people want to admit it or not, local split screen is a niche feature that most people don't use. So whether consumers have an Xbox Series X or an Xbox Series S, on both consoles, this is a niche feature. So really only a small portion of the Xbox Series S users will be affected by not having split screen at launch, whereas every single Xbox owner is affected negatively by having a delay, or even worse, there could be times where a game could completely skip Xbox because they can't get split screen working on the Xbox Series S. That's really not fair for the entire Xbox community. So Xbox, they had to do something. I mean, yeah, it's not going to be good for their PR. It's not a good look for them, but it is best for the vast majority of Xbox consumers. Now, I have seen people come out and say that Microsoft might as well just go ahead and phase out the Series S because of this, but you know, I think that's a little narrow-minded. The Xbox Series S is still a great budget-friendly entry point for next-generation games, and as long as they can get all these games working on a Series S, and as long as they run fairly well, that is the most important thing. You can't play games like Starfield on the Xbox One, but you can play them on the Xbox Series S, and that right there is the direct benefit of having this console. Not necessarily split screen, just being able to play these games at all with adequate performance. However, we've always kind of understood that there were certain sacrifices made to get the Series S at that low price point. It shouldn't really be overly surprising that it can't do everything that the Xbox Series X can offer. But at the same time, the thing is that up to this point, the big difference was about graphical features. This is one of the first instances that we've seen an impact elsewhere. So even though I agree with Microsoft's solution here, again, I think that it benefits the majority of the Xbox fan base, but at the same time, I do understand the conversation surrounding this topic as well. A lot of people have already bought the Xbox Series S, and some of those people might be disappointed with their purchase because this wasn't known to them right away. Also, those same customers, and maybe even future Xbox Series S customers, that they might have to ask themselves if they can change the rules with split screen parity. Even though that is a niche feature that won't affect the majority of Xbox Series S owners, can Microsoft loosen the parity clause with other features down the road as well? How much are they really going to support the Xbox Series S in the long run? And I think that question is logical to a degree, but I think it also depends on the severity and fan feedback. I think Xbox saw the reactions online to the Baldur's Gate 3 delay, and a lot of people, in fact, was calling for a parity change. I did as well, and they actually listened. So I think that there's a more grandiose picture here than they just simply axe this feature with no care in the world. Not everything is necessarily black and white, and I think that this was a complex situation that required a complex solution. They listened to fan feedback, they learned from it, and they addressed it with fans being the center of that debate. Still, though, I mean, this is only my opinion, but I do want to hear from you all in the comments below. Do you agree with Xbox making this change, or do you find it problematic? Keep in mind that there's no wrong answers here. Just let me know in the comments below on how you feel. Give me the full picture of what you believe and why you feel that way. Hopefully, we can have a respectful debate in the comments rather than just constant attacks at each other. I do read those comments, and I see how you all treat each other. It's always good to be respectful to one another, regardless if you have some differences. Not everybody shares the same opinions or preferences, but either way, do let me know how you feel about this situation in the comments below. Now, here's something really exciting, though. About a week ago, we talked about some Sony Santa Monica job listings that suggested that they were working on something God of War related. Now, I don't think that that's necessarily overly surprising on its own. Of course, they're working on something God of War related. I mean, it's debatably PlayStation's mascot, but I speculated that it wasn't God of War 6, but rather, I believed that it was God of War 5.5, a small-scale game similar to Miles Morales and Uncharted Lost Legacy that focuses on Atreus and Sindri. If you played through that game, and I'm not going to give you the reason why for spoiler-related reasons, but their story was left unresolved by the end of the game, and personally, I find that to be a little strange in the sense, how do you move on to God of War 6 before completing that story? I believe Kratos will be the focus of God of War 6, not Atreus. So they need to complete that side of the story before moving on, but it kind of sounds like I was wrong on at least one account. According to a new leak by The Snitch, which has proven to be accurate in the past, this won't be a small-scale game, but rather they're working on God of War Ragnarok DLC. Now, not much else is known for the time being. We don't have a release window or anything like that, but if this is true, this would be the first major DLC for the God of War franchise ever. So this is a shift for Sony with the God of War franchise, but I mean, if you think about it, it does kind of make sense. Sony has changed a lot under Jim Ryan's reign. They've really put a lot of their resources on live service games, so why not make a change here as well? Instead of releasing a small-scale game, maybe just do DLC instead. Of course, they just did that with Horizon Forbidden West and its expansion. And truthfully, I don't think that it really matters how they release it. It's all semantics at the end of the day. As long as the DLC is handled with care and it's high quality, that's the most important thing, and that's what fans are going to be drawn to. Either way, though, if you enjoyed Ragnarok, it sounds like there is more coming, and I think that that alone is exciting for fans. Now, one last topic that I want to go over real quick is a new Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack game. Last night, they revealed another Nintendo 64 title being Excitebike 64. They dropped a new trailer for this game that went quite hard. I think the marketing team had a lot of fun with its trailer. You should go check it out, but a lot of people view this as one of the better Nintendo 64 games. It's just a lot of fun to play, and it's one of those games that I think has aged quite well, whether you're an old-time fan or a newcomer. Excitebike 64 is one of those games that everybody can just simply have fun with. It will be available to subscribers, though, on August 30th, and there you go. That Nintendo 64 library continues to grow for you expansion pack subscribers out there. Though, interestingly enough, something that caught my attention last night was another Nintendo 64 game that was trending on X, formerly Twitter, and that was Diddy Kong Racing. I was pleasantly surprised to see that because that was legitimately my favorite Nintendo 64 game as a kid. I'd rank it right up there with Mario Kart, Crash Team Racing, and Mod Nation Racers. Those four are really, in my opinion, the best kart racers ever made. So I mean, I guess I'm just kind of using this as an excuse to talk about it, but I am kind of hoping that Nintendo and Xbox sees that eagerness online. I mean, we've seen them work together a few different times to bring back Banjo-Kazooie for Switch Online. They also revived GoldenEye 007, and I'd like to see them kind of work together once again to bring back Diddy Kong Racing, maybe a Switch Online release, and then also maybe a remaster for Xbox, similar to what happened with GoldenEye 007. Come on. Let's make this happen. Let's go take a look at the poll of the day. Though we're asked you all, are you going to pick up Armored Core 6 this weekend? It did release today, and it has been reviewing very well. But as you can see here, the vast majority of you all are not going to pick it up this weekend. Now, it does look like a lot of you all are interested, with 42% of you saying no, but you plan on getting it later, whereas 13% of you said yes, and then 39% of you said no, not interested. Now, I think the reason the results kind of came out this way is because, I mean, if you look at all the games releasing right now, I mean, you're going to have to decide which one you're going to play first. Are you going to play Armored Core 6, or are you going to play Starfield? That's kind of the conundrum that people find themselves in, and that's why it can be frustrating at times when developers, they release all of these games right next to one another. Gamers only have so much free time that they can work with, and even though Armored Core 6 is a very good game, it might have to be put aside for a lot of players. It's releasing right between Baldur's Gate 3 and Starfield. That's two huge titles to be sandwiched between, but it is, however, nice to see so many of you all are interested in Armored Core 6. I do believe by the end of everything, this will be the best-selling entry in the franchise by far. I also believe that it will be the fastest-selling entry, and I imagine we're going to get news on that very, very quick. And, you know, I just think this is exciting times for fans of the Armored Core series. This has always had a long-running, passionate fan base, but it appears this series is really going to grow in a big way, and not only is that good for this title alone, but it's also just great for this series moving forward. This could be the beginning of more frequent releases in the future. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.